I'm Phil Brock. This is Brock on your block, and yes, I'm staying with the Santa Monica High School, a Samohi Viking football helmet, because this show is all about Samohi's football heritage. I'm here with the legendary Tebb Kusserow, a Samohi graduate, but coach, you are one of the legends of Santa Monica. You didn't coach all the sports here from 1891 to 2016, right?
I did not, but in some instances I feel like I have. Certainly when we were working on the 1920 CIF championship team, it was the first in Samohi's football history. And I felt when I would finish that project that I actually had coached every player on the team. I knew them inside out, and they became very close friends.
You went to Samohi and you coached here from?
I think I've always sort of coached here. As a grad student at USC, I was involved with Dick Turner, who was the head coach at the time, and my good friend John Dalen, who became a principal in Orange County, was my teammate here, was senior class president, was president of the CIF. He and I came back in the late 60s and coached the junior varsity team. And then when I graduated in 1971 with my doctorate in phys ed, I took a teaching position here. Was an assistant to Don Steer for 1 year.
71 was the year I graduated from Samohi, as a matter of fact.
We probably saw each other.
Yeah, oh no, we did. So you've been involved in this heritage project here. And, you know, Samohi, you just mentioned something that I think is extraordinary. Santa Monica High School won its first football championship in 1920?
Won its first Southern California championship in 1920.
There's a cup back here, which we shouldn't drink punch out of, but I understand it dates back to 1916?
Yes, that's correct. The first big league championship cup that was awarded in any sport was awarded to Samohi. The Bay League came into existence in 1916, so football being the first sport of the school year, Samohi was the champion, so we have the cup.
Ah, very cool, and we've kept the cup. So, for all these years, Santa Monica High School is a big urban high school, and we've had several championships, not only in football, but in other sports. But tell me a little bit about the years that we won championships in football.
League championships, probably 30, 35, I couldn't begin to tell you the years, but in Southern California we've won 7, 1920, 1941, 1947, 1952 and 53, they repeated, almost again in 54, but they didn't, 1981 and 2001.
Who was coaching the 1981 team and the 2001 team?
Head coach in 2001 was Norman Lacey, and I was the head coach in 1981.
Ah, so you won one of those football
I
championships.
was involved, yes.
What was your favorite team?
They weren't all my favorite teams, but you know, you like to think that you make a difference in the lives of the kids on your team. So many, I couldn't pick one.
You know, I think the most because I coached a little bit too. The most gratifying part of coaching is not when you're actually coaching. It's 15, 20, 30 years later, when a young man that you coach comes back and shakes your hand and thanks you for the work you put into them.
That happens, and it usually happens when you're at a point where you need it.
Yeah.
It's amazing how that happens. You may have an outstanding team. In 1981, we won the CIF championship, and we had some phenomenal players on that team. I think some of the most gratifying moments for me were to see the players who weren't in that group contribute the way they did to make the whole thing happen, because it wouldn't have happened had they not done that.
And I suppose many of them were also good students as well.
Some were very good students, yes, absolutely. Some were marginal students.
Yeah, but we hope that they improved their educational experience as well as their athletic experience while they were here at Samohi.
Well, absolutely, there's no question about that. My view, I always felt that interscholastic sport had so much to give educationally to the player. And for me, that really was the most important thing. We never talked about winning games, ever. And we always talked about being the best that you could be. And, you know, the winning was a result.
That's a good UCLA concept. I
I hope
don't know
not.
where, I hope that you took that away, with you, even though you went to USC.
Well, I learned it at USC. I was very fortunate. I had a tremendous mentor.
So I know that you and another gentleman who has long ties to this campus, former principal Terry Pearson, he was the principal from 1971 to 1988. You started this project called the Heritage Project. Tell me about the Heritage Project and what you've done to preserve Santa Monica High School's athletic history.
Well, Terry and I and Rena McKenzie are the archive committee, and we're very committed and very concerned that the special moments over time, and this high school began in 1891, are preserved for those who want to come back and relive them or reacquaint with them. We have organized this heritage display for people to come in and look at, but that's just part of the project. We're also trying to organize all the Nautilus yearbooks and the Samohi school newspaper editions that were bound up to a certain time annually, to make that information presentable to people who want to come in and do research, or it might be for a class reunion, it might be for some kind of a writing project, that sort of thing.
So you're really preserving the institutional history
to.
of Santa Monica High School, because we're now a century and a quarter old this year.
That's right.
And the athletic history in the trophy cases behind me is something that we hope our current students understand, that they look at, that they appreciate.
Well, we're trying to present it in a way that tells a story chronologically by decade. If you look in the 1970 cabinet, you'll see a tremendous number of achievements there. It starts in the principal's office, and if you have a great leader there, then you're going to have great things happen on campus. And if you look at people like Ewing Knoll and Terry Pearson and William Barnum, great things happened while they were principals.
Yeah, and my principal, Dr. Drake.
And George Drake.
Yeah.
Their tenures were long.
Yeah.
And they cared about the school. There was a commitment there. And what they do is they empower the faculty and the students to the excellence that they expect.
We are Santa Monica's only public high school. That commitment by you, by Terry, by Rena, and by others, the Samohi Alumni Association,
right,
is to preserve and protect our history. And I hope that our current students and future students understand the work that you've done, because it will help them appreciate the good works of our high school. Now, you were the Spirit of Samohi winner last year by the Alumni Association. We wanted to recognize the work you've done in our community. We have Distinguished Alumni Awards, we have Hall of Fame Awards. To me, the most important awards are the people who just gave back in Santa Monica. We're recognizing more again this year. I wanted to walk over here for a minute because I realized I see something that I think is really cool, Tebb.
Yes.
The Hymn of Praise, which is Samohi's thing that we sing after every game, the thing that we sing all the time.
Right. This is the original copy of the Hymn of Praise that was written by Ken Darby. It's actually, it says 1927 there, I think, but I think he actually wrote it in 1926. Learn it, you never forget it. I can remember I was with a tour group in Israel. Our tour guide said, somebody has to go down to the bottom of the theater at Caesarea and say something. Tebb, you're the youngest, you go down and say something. So I went to the bottom, and half of our group was from Samohi, so I sang the Hymn of Praise.
You know, looking at the early campus, looking at Samohi, looking at the Memorial Greek Theater, looking at our first CIF championship trophy, which, by the way, that trophy, a lot smaller than what they do now.
That's actually the reason that's up there is because we can't find the CIF trophy. That's the Bay League trophy from the same year with all the players' names inscribed on it. The CIF trophy was a huge silver football called the Spalding Award. It was presented by Spalding. And it's on a big walnut base, and we can't find it.
I see a CIF tennis championship.
Yes, Samohi has, had a very, very strong reputation in tennis in the 60s and the 50s. And people like Glenn Bassett, who played here and was the head coach.
At UCLA, as well as here.
Well, I guess he wasn't. That was too bad.
Oh, little rivalry there. Here's the 1912 day, April 13th, 1962, celebrating 50 years on Indian Hill, because the History Building area is called Indian Hill.
Indian Hill, and it was absolutely stunning in 1912 when Allison and Allison, they were the architects. They actually built Royce Hall at UCLA. And when they built that history building, it was the administration building at that time. All the upper deck classrooms were open air, and so the sea breeze would blow.
Were they really?
Yes.
Wow. Just want to let you see Dennis Thurman, Dennis Smith, Mel Kaufman.
Yes, those were our 3 students who were in school in the 1970s. This was a tremendous decade for Samohi. They all played high school football and other sports, basketball, track. Dennis Smith was a state high jump champion at 7'2". They all went on to play college football. Thurman and Smith were All-Americans at USC. Kaufman went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. All 3 of them played in Super Bowls.
And I see the American Legion Championship trophy just below us.
Yes.
And for that, actually, the Kiwanis Club just gave another grant to Al Montanari Jr. last week to continue the work of the American Legion baseball in Santa Monica.
That's wonderful.
It's really, really important that if you ever have a chance to come to Santa Monica High School, or your children or your grandchildren are here at Samohi, to recognize the heritage, to recognize the rich history of this campus, of our school, and how many students have come through this school and have been enriched by their experience here in Santa Monica at Santa Monica High School. For Brock and Your Block, I'm Phil Brock. We'll see you next week.